Hello my friends, and welcome, not to the Asian Zone, but rather the Netherworld. Yeah, I'm here again today to both recruit some new printies.
Say, do we get any health benefits, dude?
Yeah, you're covered for 1 explosion death a day.
Alright. I guess I can work with what I got, dude.
Watch out for those stairs. That counts as your 1, you know.
Darn it, dude!
As well as do a couple of videos dedicated to my favorite tactical RPG series ever, Disgaea. To me, there's just so much to like about these games. Obviously, they play well, but that alone wouldn't have held my interest for all these years, especially since I wasn't even that much into strategy games as a kid. No, what kept me invested were the subjects of today, the characters. Disgaea is pretty much the Gintama of the RPG world in terms of its colorful cast. A bunch of guys and gals who come off as mostly tongue-in-cheek parodies of their genre's tropes, but at times show deeper, more sensitive sides. Oh, and they can also kick 7 kinds of ass. That's pretty nice too. For these next 2 videos, we're going to count out my top 20 favorite Disgaea characters. Believe me, it wasn't easy trying to narrow this down to just 20. In fact, to make it a bit easier for myself, I'm implementing a couple of rules. 1, I'm only including main characters, so no generic character classes, villains, or post-game guests. As much as I'd love to include Zeta, the wielder of the most badass freaking voice actors in the entire cosmos, he is the star of his own game.
I'm a freaking overlord, you idiot! The strongest one in the entire cosmos!
And 2, I'm judging characters mostly by their main game contributions, so that means including their plot significance, their usefulness in battle, and just general charm that makes them enjoyable to play with. Again, for a list like this, spoilers are unavoidable for certain characters. Nonetheless, we've got 6 games worth of characters to choose from, so let's just get right into it with numbers 20 through 11 of my personal favorite Disgaea characters. Number 20. Yukimaru from Disgaea 2. In spite of how much Japan has tried to kill off the coolness factor of ninjas in recent years, Yukimaru has withstood the barrage of loudmouth protagonists and remains a very likable kunoichi. First of all, I love her design. I mean, I don't know how she keeps that big ass sash tied perfectly all the time, and I don't care, it looks cool. Now you could say the white on her clothes sticks out at night, but remember, she comes from a snow-covered village, so it's perfect camouflage there. And even elsewhere, it doesn't stick out as much as, say, 90% of other shinobi fashion. Second, she is just adorable. In English and Japanese, she has a fun little verbal tick in which she puts a phrase at the end of her sentences. She either speaks like Kenshin Himura and says "degozaru" or my personal preference.
Zam. You like to say Zam.
Yeah, well that could understandably get annoying, considering that she says it with such zeal actually makes it kind of endearing. In fact, that's probably the best way to describe Yukimaru, endearing. While she can be a little naive and a bit seppuku crazy, she does have a good sense of honor and is very loyal to her allies. Sure, I didn't use her a lot later in the game as her stats make her a bit more of a fragile speedster and she only gets 1 good attack near the end of the game, but she was still a fun addition to the cast. Yukimaru, the kunoichi who proves that even if you're an assassin of the night, you should always have proper manners.
From now on, you shall have my blade. I will fight with my body and soul for you, Zam.
Just don't get too close to me. I don't like girls that much.
Number 19. Mr. Tam Phu from Disgaea 3. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and guess that this chef enjoys putting a lot of ham in his Okinawan stir fry. Yeah, as someone who went to a high school that didn't have home ec, I kind of wish it did if my teacher turned out to be like this guy. Mr. Tam Phu takes the energy and cooking skills of Emerald Lagasse, minus the over-reliance on butter, and cranks it up to 11. This guy is just a total blast, both in story and in battle, where he's a fairly versatile and well-balanced fist user. I usually like to put him near the front lines because while he's not the best tank in the game, we'll get to him in just a bit, he's still a good counterattacker and even has an ability that buffers the damage dealt. All that said though, he doesn't go through that much character development. Understandable, he's a mentor character, so they're mostly just there to speak wise words to the real heroes, which Tam Phu does well enough here. It's just that doesn't make him the most compelling character in this game. Nonetheless, this just pure entertainment value makes him a lot more approachable than say Gordon Ramsay. That alone should get him at least a show on the Food Network.
Do not fear the flames! The pan over high heat is what makes a delicious and crisp vegetable stir-fry. Boom!
Number 18. Sicily from Disgaea Dimension 2. Moving on, we have the first angel to make this list. Well, actually I should say more angel-esque character, as her origins are definitely more on the complicated side of things, especially for Disgaea, but we'll get to those spoilers in just a bit. First, gameplay-wise, Sicily is mostly a support unit meant to buff your allies' defenses. While I personally don't bother with status buffs all that much, I can recognize the application of such. This is supported by the fact that Sicily herself is a stone wall, having above average defenses in every category, including a unique ability called Little Sister Aura that reduces elemental damage by 75%. Dang, those little sisters have tough skin. Then again, that would explain how poor Nepgear survives a lot of her sister's nonsense. But yeah, in case you're wondering whose little sister she is, she's Laharl's.
Oh, okay. What?
Yeah, let me explain. Dimension 2 made an interesting little retcon to Laharl's past. In the original story, Laharl's mother sacrificed herself in order to save her son who was dying from an illness. Now that alone was a tragic enough backstory that we'll discuss the aftermath of later. But of course, the guys down in Nipponichi figured that wasn't nearly tragic enough, so they decided to add in the little fact that she was pregnant with Sicily when she did the sacrifice. You just had to pile it on, didn't you guys? Wanting to give both of her children a chance to live, their mother gave up an opportunity to be reborn as an angel to Sicily while she became a prinny. Unfortunately, even then, life wasn't easy for Sicily as she was still part demon, and that didn't reflect well with the residents of Celestia, who are 90% xenophobic assholes.
That was the saddest story ever!
Oh, well, tough tail feathers! No refunds!
So yeah, while the writers were kind of laying the sob story a little bit thick onto poor Sicily, she does remain a surprisingly amiable character. Hell, the fact that she tries to take over the Netherworld shows that she at least has a lot more moxie than most little sisters in anime and games. In fact, I'll say it, I find the brother-sister relationship she forms with Laharl to be cute. So while her gameplay style isn't my thing, Sicily's cuteness and compelling backstory won me over to actually liking a little sister character.
And then I'll nail that box to myself. And when it arrives, I'll smash it with a hammer.
Number 17. Almost von Aldemine Adamant from Disgaea 3. And man, you'd love to have a name like that now, wouldn't ya? Yet, despite that awesome name, Almost is pretty much everyone's punching bag in story and in battle. While he is actually a competent and balanced physical fighter, his stats make him more of a tank than anything else. He can take a significant barrage and even has an ability in which he'll automatically take the blow for his allies. In that sense, he is an invaluable member of the team. Hell, in many ways, in spite of who's on the cover, I consider Almost to be the real main protagonist of Disgaea 3. Yeah, sure, a lot of the game's events revolve around Mao, but really, I think Almost went through a much better character arc by discovering what it truly means to be a hero. He started off as a naive young man who thought a title alone would make him a hero, when really, he still had a lot to learn. And by the game's 4th chapter, he started to really become one, ironically enough, by giving up his title as a hero, both to help Mao, and because he felt he hadn't earned it yet. Really, in spite of my problems with Disgaea 3's narrative, Almost in his arc was one of the more engaging aspects of it. Almost, you may not have started off as a true hero, but truth is, you were already about halfway there. After all, you were voiced by one of the greatest Power Rangers ever, how could you not love that?
Though the leader of the Prism Rangers, I am all alone. So I'm recruiting anyone I meet, teenager with attitude or not.
What a sad hero.
Number 16. Fenric from Disgaea 4. So, from a wimpy nice guy, let's move on to the cool a-hole. Fenric, the vassal of the main character of Disgaea 4, may be a deceitful, conniving bastard, but damn can he be a magnificent bastard. Hell, even when you look at his less detailed game sprite, you can tell when he has a serious troll face on. Dude has a tongue just as silver as his hair and can turn many situations towards his master's favor. He'll manipulate anyone or anything, including his own allies, which normally I'd say is a bit of a dick move, but considering his normal company, I'd say it's mostly acceptable targets. In battle, he was definitely one of my frontrunners in the early part of the game. While stats make him a surprisingly beefy speedster with good physical attack, I stopped using him by the last quarter of the game, partially because his best attacks had awkward map placement, but mostly because his unique evilities were a bit too situational. Appropriate for his character, but still situational. Still, for being one of my go-to guys in the early chapters of the game and having one of the best troll faces ever, Fenric is a D-bag you love to hate. Also, his backstory with Valvatoris, while not exactly the deepest in the entire series, was still pretty nice, and may or may not have had some homosexual undertones, at least according to the fangirls.
Yep. The truth about the relationship between those boys is about to be revealed. It's sending shivers down my spine.
It's too stimulating.
Number 15. Crystal from Disgaea 5. We move on to the first Disgaea 5 character to make this list, and he's an interesting one. Though initially in battle, he's nothing that special, just a healer who unfortunately can't take too many physical attacks. He does, however, have a very useful overload skill that increases his allies' accuracy, and later does gain some good magical attacks that don't look all that devilish. Yeah, normally here I'd say slight spoilers are coming, but let's face it, Quattro Bagina does a better job at convincing people he's not the Red Comet than this guy does at convincing people he's not an undercover angel. From his demeanor, to his aforementioned skill set, to the fact he has Christ in his name! Seriously dude, if you're gonna use an alias, perhaps use one that doesn't include the name of your boss's son. That is, unless you really want that raise or something. That aside, the Count of Monte Cristo is a fairly well-developed character. As I pointed out back during Sicily's part, the Angels of Disgaea can be total jerk-asses, especially towards demons. However, through his interactions with the other main characters of Disgaea 5, Cristo slowly came to realize his pointless prejudices were just that. He realized they could express camaraderie and love just like anyone else. Hell, based on how much of a douche his superior was, it was probably the most love and camaraderie he had felt in a while. By the end of the game, he was on his way to becoming the new Seraph who would seek to create peace between Celestia and the Netherworld. Kind of like a certain someone else. In fact, his ultimate attack kind of looks familiar, and his Japanese VA kind of sounds familiar too. Yeah, it's heavily implied that Cristo is in fact a younger Lamington. That alone helped put him a little higher on my list. Cristo may not have been my favorite character to use in battle, but within time he would become a major player in the series at large.
Oh, okay then, but let me tell you one thing. It's about Armageddon. We just launched it.
What did you just say? Why? I mean, why?
Number 14. Rasparrow from Disgaea 3. Back to detention we go to meet the most badass delinquent at the Evil Academy, Rasparrow. Or as I like to call her, Vignette version 1. Yeah, apparently she acquired her title of #1 delinquent by defying her academy's expectations by being a well-mannered and proactive member of the student body. You see, in the Netherworld, you're considered an honor student if you ditch classes, maybe enslave a few printies, and just cause general mayhem. While a delinquent is a duteous student who has perfect attendance, participates in after-school activities, and actually graduates from the academy. So then what's the whole point of the academy in the first place? I mean, if the teachers aren't expecting the students to show up, do they just sleep at their desk all day? Is it even worth paying them? I don't get it. Oh boy, and I thought our educational system was messed up. The point is, Barrow's a delinquent with the biggest damn heart of gold. She helps out pretty much anyone she can, which of course includes her childhood friend Mao, and as a result, she becomes pretty much a major driving force behind many of the game's events. And while she's not the most developed character, at least not in the main game, she's easily one of the most charming characters because of her helpful nature, and yes, her cute design. Helped by the fact that her English VA is Laura Bailey, going full Sana from Kodocha, while her Japanese VA, Chiwa Saito, has way too many good examples. You pick one. In battle, she is a bit of a glass cannon, but does have strong spells that provide great coverage. So yeah, even though her teacher Sierra is a big troublemaker, Rasparrow is one charismatic demon who has won over many in the fan. Wait, I know the perfect Chiwa Saito character to relate Barrel to.
So small. You're like a little snow fairy.
Number 13. Fuka Kazamatsuri from Disgaea 4. Meet the character whose influence was so strong that it forced her VA to cosplay as her. Well, okay, Fuka didn't actually force Suzuko Mimori to cosplay. Mimori is just naturally obsessed with cosplay. Which, by the way, I'm still waiting on my E.G. Pinkie Pie cosplay. I know you guys dubbed those movies. Anyway, Fuka herself is pretty darn fun. Her deal is that she was meant to become a prinny, but due to budgetary constraints, they just gave her a prinny hat and jacket and said, good enough. And to further complicate matters, Fuka is in absolute denial that she's dead and just believes that everything around her is a very elaborate dream. As such, she tries to bend everyone and everything to her selfish teenage girl desires, whether they want to or not. In other words, she's kind of like that talking plank of wood from that Tim Burton thing or whatever. Now based on that, I can understand why her "it's all a dream" shtick could get pretty tiresome for some, but honestly I found Fuka's take on it much better. I think I'm just fascinated by the lengths this girl will go through to make her dreams come true, to the point she'll remodel hell itself to suit her ideals. Moreover, I really like her relationship with Dezuko, her sort of little sister. Yeah, more on that later. But the two of them together, honestly, I found to be a rather cute little sisterly pair. Seeing Fuka develop into a protective older sister for Dezuko in spite of her aforementioned dream denial stuff was pretty sweet. In battle, she was a damn good tank with some surprisingly good range thanks to her baseball-themed skills, and an ultimate attack involving a giant pretty mech. Yeah, to me, Fuka is just the kind of Disgaea character I like. Certifiably insane, lost in their own world, and if you don't agree with them, they'll Looney Tune you into oblivion.
Cool! Then I've decided! I'm coming with you! My new mission is to become the Netherworld President!
What? Wasn't your goal to revise the Prinny Law?
It's the same difference. Besides, I like the sound of that better.
Number 12. Sapphire from Disgaea 3. One more from 3 and my personal favorite from that game. Yet for whatever reason, Sapphire doesn't seem to be nearly as popular in Japan as she is here in the West. Which I get, everyone has their own taste, but come on, this princess is a blast! She has good stats all across the board, making her very versatile, more so because she's competent with axes, bows, and guns. Weapons that cover close, mid, and long range attacks respectively, so she's a jack of all trades in the pure sense. Not unlike another character, but more on her in a bit. But whatever she's packing, chances are good this little lady is gonna bring the pain. Which matches perfectly with her personality, which is Disney princess who doesn't give a crap. I just love how her whole reason for coming to the Netherworld in the first place was to launch a preemptive attack against the Demon Overlord before he could Princess Peach her way into another castle. I think this lady and Andrew get along pretty darn well. Still, even a hyper-violent princess can have a bit more of a sensitive side. Because while she does revel in being tough as nails, she also loathes her inability to outwardly express sorrow. Through the years, she has lost many close to her, like her mother, whom she didn't even shed a tear for at her funeral. As a result, she was ridiculed by everyone in her court except Almos, who understood her dilemma because Almos is awesome. But yeah, in the end, some people just don't know how to process sorrow. It doesn't mean that they don't feel anything, just that they may end up expressing it in different ways than others. Eventually, Sapphire did learn how to be a little bit more expressive with all of her emotions, most notably when she falls in love with Almos. Yeah, have I mentioned how I think Almos should have been the main character, especially considering how great his and Sapphire's story arc was? For being a badass princess with a surprisingly deep story, who also goes all the way with her love interest, Sapphire easily earns her spot as my favorite Disgaea 3 character. Also, as I pointed out earlier, she has a thing for lowly demon girls, so yeah, she definitely has good taste.
Stop!
hug and play with the transfer student and her cute cat ears.
猫耳はすごい。猫耳万歳。
Number 11. Etna from Disgaea 1. Closing out the first part of this list, let's bring in a character from the first game. And in fact, aside from the narrator, she is also the first character we hear speak in the series. See how all that works out? But yeah, as I just mentioned, she is the other good example of a jack of all trades. While her stats will vary depending on the game she's in, a constant that does remain in each game is how she can utilize 3 weapons just like Sapphire, which also just so happen to include axes and guns, but switches out bows with spears. Because of that little switch out, I do think that gives her a little bit more versatility considering spears have a little bit more power behind them. But again, what I really came to like about Etna was how they approached her character. Because while she does have a very overinflated ego and everything, she's also one of the series' most well-developed sympathetic characters in my opinion. The first game gave us a little taste of this after we learned how she was taken in by the previous king, King Yeah, you know, it's hard enough trying to do these live action parts in one take. I'll just let Valvatoris do it.
Okay, Krichepskoy.
Anyway, since she was taken in by the former king at a young age for a demon, she developed a great deal of respect for him, especially after he supported her on many occasions. Ironically, she probably developed a healthier father-like relationship with him than his 2 actual kids, and thus was far more devastated when he passed away. And just to make matters worse for her, some a-hole vampires stole her memories of those good times. Throughout her story arc in the first game, there were some nice subtle bits that showed how much the king and the memories of him meant to her. And thankfully she did the smart thing and teamed up with Laharl to pull off a pretty damn awesome gambit to beat the crap out of that vampire and take back her memories. Now that was great stuff, but where she truly shined was in Dimension 2. There we got more of Etna's backstory, including how she came into the care of the king in the first place. As it turns out, she was born with a surplus of power that, if not kept in check, could kill her. Thus, her older brother Zenith took it upon himself to merge with an artifact that would siphon off that excess energy. Unfortunately, that same artifact sought to drain the Netherworld of all of its energy, thus making Zenith a serious threat that many demons sought to eliminate. During one such encounter, he lost track of Etna, who of course was later found and taken in by the king. Knowing that she'd be safer with him, he decided to leave the young Etna in the king's care and let her believe she was an orphan. While I do have some minor hangups with Dimension 2 and its story, the tragedy of Etna and Zenith was one of the more compelling plot points I had ever seen in any Disgaea game. And while she doesn't believe they're siblings at first, after learning how much Zenith had gone through to protect her, Etna with no hesitation literally tried to share some of the pain with him. And later, she even used a favor Laharl owed to her to have Zenith pardoned for all of the trouble he had caused in Dimension 2. Etna is definitely one of the most complex characters in all of Disgaea. For as selfish as she can be, she can also legitimately care about others. That definitely propels her to be one of my top favorites.
Prinny played and Prinny parade and Prinny raid!
That's it for the first half of this list. I'll be back with the second half soon enough, but first I gotta start looking through these. So farewell for now, my friends, and let's see. Skilled or genius? Or should I splurge in the first place for pretty, oh, this color's nice. Wait, why does this one look so metallic?